Maybe. Oh, we're live. Zero warning, zero nothing, Matt. Thank you so much. Matt just says, "Oh, we're live." That's great. I love it. Hello, welcome everyone, and let's wait for a few more people to jump on here. Where are we at, Matt?
What do you mean?
How many people are on? I want to give people.
Just one live, so.
I want to get.
Waiting. You can talk about the topic.
All right. Well, while people are logging on, a couple of interesting things that took place here in Philadelphia. Two armed men held up the Zales outlet store at the Philadelphia Mills Mall, also known as the Frankie Mills Mall. I remember when that mall first opened up. I was a child, and it was like one of those biggest malls that we've seen in many, many, many years. And I was like pretty amazed the fact that they built such a huge mall. But what's more amazing about the fact is that they said that they stole Rolexes, right, Matt? It was, yeah. And I did not know that Zales outlet stores now carries Rolex. I guess everybody is jumping on the bandwagon of pre-owned goods. And rightfully so. Zales has, what, 50,000 stores around the world, or around the United States, I should say. So it doesn't surprise me that they decided to go that route. Of course, a lot of these big box stores or big companies, they tend to reach out to other, in my industry, in the gray market, to supply that type of product. But yeah, they went in, they stole a bunch of Rolexes, and Philadelphia Mills Mall, or as it used to be called, Frankie Mills Malls, is not the same anymore.
They just changed the name to
They did?
Franklin Mall.
Now it's Franklin Mall. It used to be, so it opened up as Frankie Mills Mall.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, armed robberies do happen, and this one actually hit very close to home. Our office is about, what, I would say 15 minutes away from there right now. They used a sledgehammer to break open the display cases and got away with 8 Rolex watches. Smash and grabs do happen, and do happen quite often. What else is in the news this week? There's a ton of other stuff that we wanted to talk about. I remember. Remember that Titanic linked pocket watch that sold for 1.97 million, and nobody really knew who bought it. Well, now the cat's out of the bag, as they said. It was indeed Tiffany and Co. that actually bought that pocket watch. Now, that was gifted to Captain Arthur Rostron, right, of the RMS Carpathia, and it was given by the 3 survivors of the Titanic sinking, and it was in gratitude for actually saving them, right? It was engraved with a message. I think it's said, it had his initials, HAR, and I'm going to read the engraving. It said, "Presented to Captain Rostron with the heartfelt gratitude and appreciation of 3 survivors of the Titanic, April 15, 1912. Mrs. John Thayer, Mrs. John Jacob Astor, and Mrs. George Widener, I should say." I am not surprised because, well, first of all, I think there is a bit of a record set there. Can you scroll up a little bit, Matt? Matt, can you scroll up a little bit? And I think it's the most expensive item that was acquired in the likes of a pocket watch, or I should say, linked to the Titanic disaster. $2 million, and again, rightfully so that Tiffany actually owns it. How many people do we got on now? 44. All right. Kevin stole my bike by Abel Louis Czar Jr. Our Kevin stole your bike? I'm gonna have words with him. Either case, I'm going to talk about a little bit of an update to year end. I pulled up some numbers, and we've been fully transparent with you guys from the day that this YouTube channel started. We made you preview to a lot of things, which some companies may deem private information. I always felt like transparency is the best way to interface with your viewers, in turn, your potential clients and your existing clients. One of the most important things that I tend to look at eyes in and dollars in, right? And what do I mean by that? It's no secret that we put forth a tremendous effort in our marketing department. We're talking about managing 10 Instagram accounts, TikTok accounts, Facebook accounts, a couple of YouTube channels, which all then in turn breaks down into various type of content that we have to do. And for those of you that follow us on the various social media channels, be it YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc., we do set some goals, right? So by the time we, before next year starts, there will be goals based on previous year's goals in order to do what? In order to grow, right? And when you're in the e-commerce business, especially today, you're looking at things like, okay, social media is sort of it, website has kind of become sort of that window where social media is what actually tends to bring in the buyers, right? And it's sort of the extension. If you had a big store, this is sort of an extension to that. And we found it to be fairly effective, thanks to you guys and all you guys watching us, right? I'm going to pull up some numbers on the social side of things, and I'll tell you about some of the goals that we set and where we've gotten to. Do you have that up?
Say it?
The social numbers, can I see those?
Yes.
So,
We were having audio issues on Instagram, which you might want to address. We fixed it.
oh yeah, there was an audio issue on Instagram.
Yep, we fixed
I
it.
think Instagram can hear us now. Can we pull up the numbers that I just talked about?
Yep.
Meanwhile, Dan Murphy says Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you as well. So we tend to break this stuff down by channels, users, et cetera, et cetera. So for YouTube, we have two channels. We have the Luxury Bazaar channel. We're on Luxury Bazaar right now.
Yes.
So we have this channel that I'm on right now, and then obviously we have the Roman Sharf YouTube channel. By year end of 2023, Luxury Bazaar channel was sitting at just under 51,000 subscribers, and the Roman Sharf channel was sitting at 430,000 subscribers. Year end goal for 2024 was 500,000 subscribers for YouTube for my channel, and we got that up to roughly about 473, so about 50% there. And for the YouTube channel for Luxury Bazaar, the goal was 75,000 subscribers. We got it to just under that. So we met the goal for Luxury Bazaar. We didn't meet the goal for Roman Sharf. And the biggest question I've always asked, well, why? We used to get so many more views on YouTube channel. We used to get so many this. Well, a couple of things. Number one, algorithms change. The other most important thing that you have to take into consideration is the market, right? It's no secret the market has been down for the last 2 years. Hasn't been, wait till I get to the financials. The market has been down the last 2 years. And when something is down as far as the market of, let's say, popularity, usually the general popularity tends to go down as well. And not to mention competition, right? How many watch YouTube channels were emerged in the last year or two that did similar day in the life type of content, or just more or less of the same content, and just a sheer number? What happens is those users tend to sway off. And last but not least, we've been running a gray market show for 5 years. How many Netflix shows have you watched for a bunch of seasons and you just kind of get tired of it as well? So there's the human factor there. But don't worry, for the Roman Sharf channel, we have something pretty big in the works, because we know that if we're going to, shut down gray market, and we have to come up with something new, something that nobody else is doing, and we have come up with that idea, so stay tuned for that. And the Luxury Bazaar channel has always been steady climbing, because that's a channel for learning, getting in news, really, really geeky, strictly watch-related content, and I'm very happy with the results. For Instagram, unfortunately, one of our Instagram accounts got shut down. We got hacked, got shut down. We couldn't bring it back. We started another one from scratch. We were at 20,000. We wanted 50,000 followers. That's up to 87,000 followers. So that actually would beat the goal. My Instagram account, the goal was to go from 200 to 300. Very ambitious goal by Avi, our CMO. I'm up to like 257 at this point. So as far as I'm concerned, pretty decent job. Anna was probably a good breakout for us, because Anna was never a big social media person. She likes to put her head down and work, but we still doubled her followers. Adrian wanted to get to 100K, not quite there. I'm hoping that his new hairline is actually going to help. And as far as everything across the website, our traffic has pretty much more than doubled over the year, and mainly due to first organic traffic, right? We had our average monthly visitors were 72,000. We're at 150. Actually, 150 was the goal. We ended up at 176,000 monthly visitors, which is great. And in the new user category, we hit a goal. We wanted to go from 1.5 million new users to 2. We actually just under 2 million of new users. And then product views, which means we're doing something right. Our product views were at 321,000. The goal was to double it to 700, and we're over 800,000 views. So these stats that are, that I pulled at the end of the year and I compared them to year-end goals, extremely important. And obviously we compare that to competition. I'm not going to get into all that. I think one of the biggest bumps in our traffic was Gray Market Magazine. Gray Market Magazine was probably the biggest biggest contributor to the increase of traffic. We wanted to create an honest watch publication, and there's hundreds of them out there, but I am looking at some of the competition where that traffic is coming down to less interest in the market, and ours is still going up. That means we're doing something right. Why did you not buy Tom Brady AP? No balls. Well, here's the thing. As a watch dealer, for me to buy in auctions, I do sometimes buy in auctions, and this is from the Honest Watch channel. Sounds very honest. So to be honest, very rarely are we able to buy from auctions because we're competing against the general public. We're competing with collectors. Oftentimes we're competing against people that have a ton of money, and then the price stops to make sense. I will be honest with you. The price that watch fetched should probably be the price I'd be willing to pay. But my expectation was for this thing to go way over $1 million, right? And it didn't, which I was wrong, and I admitted that in the last live I think we talked about. But certainly, a nice surprise. Would I love to have that watch? Yes, probably with a grain of salt. I'm a big Eagles fan, so Tom Brady's not exactly. He's more associated with the Patriots, so for me, probably be like a bit of a mixed emotions, if you will. Question from Adrian. Rolex Datejust Azure Blue. What do you think about it? See, these are the type of questions where I always tell people, it doesn't matter what I think about it. If this is something you like, you buy it. Because just because I may not like a certain color or a certain variation or a certain complication in a watch, regardless of the brand, doesn't matter. If you like it, it's a good watch for you. I did. You guys line up some watches for me, and I guess, what are these? Let's see, because this is a watch channel, so I might as well show some watches. And you put them in order for me, Matt. Amazing. This, I guess, some of the new arrivals.
I got you nice and prepared.
Wow. This is very, very organized. So I'll throw a couple of watches at you guys as the questions still piling in. First, starting with the Yachtmaster. Now, this is the newer one, the 12622, and for me. Can you see this? Mm-hmm. All right. And because I'm always afraid this is not lining up properly. For me, these have historically always been undervalued, going back to its original predecessor with the platinum dial. And the reason I think they're undervalued is because I think aesthetically, you get a lot more with this watch versus even a GMT or a Submariner. I shouldn't say GMT, I should say Submariner, right? To me, this is sort of like that watch that's in between the Submariner and the GMT, be it a Batman, be it a Pepsi, doesn't really matter. Mostly what I like is I like the dial, and I like this sort of turquoise blue writing on the dial, as well as the blue hand. And I've always said, look out for Rolex watches that there's something out of the norm on the dial, because with Rolex, you're going to get the same thing consistently over the years. Submariner came out back in 1954, I believe, and it hasn't changed much in 70 years, if you think about it, right? But the minute you get like a single red sub or a double red sub, all of a sudden the values tend to go up in the future if you're holding it long term. Who's this? Seaview 2024. I wanted to ask, do you sell vintage Titus with the price that I can afford $400? No. So price levels on our website tend to be, although we've been trying to improve, actually, at one point last year or this year, even, I realized that we have more $50,000 watches than we have $5,000 watches. So I talked to Adrian and his department of buyers and said, guys, we need to bring in product that is a bit more down to earth in terms of price. So we bought more Tudors, more Omegas, some Grand Seiko, a little bit of Breitling, and we're trying to continuously do that, but it's very difficult to grow that side of the business. Well, A, you need more money outside of everything else we'll buy, and B, the product goes out as fast as it comes in. But we don't quite. We decided we're not going to go quite that low in terms of price range. And vintage, is sort of like a here and there and in between. We do get out there and find some rare vintage pieces, but those tend to be in six figures plus. And I have Lux Watchwriter thoughts on iKeyPod. I actually talked about it. We just recorded a video. Did that go out yet, Matt?
iKeyPod, no.
No, I actually just recorded some stuff on iKeyPod. Listen, this is the third iteration of iKeyPod. By chance, I was it Watches and Wonders? No, it was Watches and Wonders. And I'm in the Bon Rivage Hotel. I just visited the Bethune. And I'm walking to Jimmy Thune had this huge room for those of you guys that were there. I come out of the room, I make a left because that's where the restroom is. And I go to the restroom and I look to my right and I realize there's like a room in the back and I see somebody's in there because the Bonarage Hotel, guys take whatever little space is available to be able to display in. So I walked in and I realized it was occupied. I'm talking to this nice gentleman from Germany. He's like, yeah, I bought the company over. I managed to buy not just the company that writes the names and everything, but also managed to buy some of their vintage pieces, some of their Gen 1 stuff. And I got to talking to him. And speaking of watches in a more or less reasonable price range, I realized that he's also lowered the prices on a lot of the new product. And when he did that, light bulb kind of went up in my head. And I told him, I said, look, I'm actually looking for more of a price point product. And to me, it has to be under $10,000. And lo and behold, we talked for a long time. What I loved is he didn't change the original Newsom design. He didn't do anything. He just made that same watch, lowered the retail prices, and lo and behold, I did pick up some of the Gen 1 stuff, Gen 2 stuff, some of the collectible stuff, which is really expensive, but I also picked up some of his newer stuff, and I think those are up there for like $3,500 or something like that. Did we bring any here? No, you guys didn't give me any iPods. Well, maybe on the next one, I'll show you some more. Camera not focused. Did you focus the camera?
Yeah.
He said, put on my glasses. Well, if I put on I don't see myself actually, guys. So if I put on they have the questions up that you guys are asking. So I don't know if I'm focused or not. So I guess, thank you for that comment.
Yes, thank you for that.
What else? Your thoughts on Japanese watch brands? Outside of Grand Seiko, I couldn't really state an opinion because oftentimes you guys ask me about watches, some micro brands, or you ask me about, different watch brands, Japanese watch brands. And my answer is, for those of you who talk to me on DMs on Instagram, my answer is always the same. I don't have enough experience to make an opinion. For me to make an opinion of a watch, I would have to do a couple of things. Well, number one, I have to have the watch, physically see it, look at it, loop it, look inside the watch if possible, and to attest to the quality, to attest to finishes, to attest to many things. Then I look at things like innovations, did they make something new from a horological perspective. But last but not least, and most important, is I look at it from a trading perspective, right? For me to make an opinion on a watch is I have to bought and sold and see, hey, how fast do they sell? How popular are they? What kind of price points are they bringing? And that takes time to do so. And because I've never really been in that market, in fact, we don't really have a whole lot of experience, even with Grand Seiko. They come in here and there. We kind of know the market on them. We know that they sell and they say, well, we'll know what to pay for them. But other than that, it's very difficult to give opinions on certain things. That's why sometimes when you ask me these questions, I don't really have a choice but to be honest with you and be like, hey, guys, I really just don't know. What do we got here? Omega. The Speedmaster, this is which one? This is the 33192 Speedmaster, right? And again, this is part of that project that we started that I said, hey, listen, let's get some watches in here that are under $10,000. This one is up there for $6,000. So people ask me so many times like about Speedmasters in general or Seamasters or Speedmasters or anything. And I always tell them like, look, you already got your Rolex. I've always felt that a Speedy should be part of any collection, regardless if you have $200,000 watches or $300,000 watches. Speedmaster or Seamaster, for that matter, are so iconic that it's just a must-have watch. The next one you guys threw in my box was Elise Nardin Executive Tourbillon. Now, you've noticed there was an influx of Elise Nardins that we've been buying up, and the reason for that is because I personally believe of where the company is going. I got the chance to meet with the new management. Now, we all know the story with Elise Nardin. Unfortunately, Rolf Schneider, after he passed away, the Curating group bought over Elise Nardin and Gerard Perregaux. It's all one company, if you will. It was all one group under one umbrella. And the Curating group was in the fashion business, and their idea was, hey, we're going to produce a ton of stuff, get our money out, make a quick profit, and sort of like a quick flip. Hey, I'm going to buy this watch, I'm going to sell this watch, make my 10, 20%, and I'm happy. As a result of that, companies overproduced. The market was flooded with closeouts and things of that nature. But now that is slowly but surely coming to an end. It's been, 7 years, 8 years at this point? Yeah, it takes time for stuff to dissipate. Yeah, you still see some of the older stuff at higher discounts. But what I mostly like is what they're doing today, and that is the fact that they are underproducing. They cut their production down from 35,000 pieces a year to like under 5. And what they're producing, right? And for me, it's always been The heritage, the history. Ulysse Nardin was my top selling brand around 2004, 5, and 6, and 7. Literally my number one selling brand. Again, I'm not counting Rolex, as you can imagine, right? It was one of the top 5 popular brands, and it's also the achievements that they have. It's always been, first of all, chronometry, right? Marine chronometry. If you think of marine chronometer, there isn't a better brand out there to make a marine chronometer because they did it for pretty much the entire world. All the big navies use them. U.S. Navy, the UK Navy, and all that other stuff. Craig's, yeah, I'll get to that question in a second. So going back to this, and what also they did is they also lowered retail value. So you're actually getting a lot of bang for your dollar. Now, Ulysse Nardin is synonymous with a lot of innovations in horologies, a lot of it stemming from the Freak. I did a nice little video on the Freak on my Instagram channel. If you guys didn't see that or the history of it, it's been 20 some years. But it's the value that you get. So it's executive tourbillon. This is a skeletonized tourbillon, right? This also has the constant escapement tourbillon. This is theirs. It also uses silicium technology, which is also there. So there's a lot that's packed into a small watch. And what is it selling for? $31,000, right? Because the retails aren't that high. This doesn't retail for $100,000. It retails for a lot less. So this particular one is kind of cool because it's a tribute to the United States, and not an easy thing to do, by the way. And also the painted dolls, that's enamel. So like if you want to talk about value, what you're getting for the money from a major brand that's been around for 1846, Ulysse Nardin is it for me. Again, a little bit biased because it does hold a special place in my heart because when I was first starting out in the business, Ulysse Nardin made pretty huge chunk of my revenue, if you will. So, and they sold like hotcakes. I couldn't get enough of them. So I'm kind of slowly getting back into it. There was a question of what the best watch to buy for 5,000 or under. So this is the one question that is unanswerable. And I get a ton of those in my DMs. I have a budget of $10,000. What do you recommend I buy? I have a budget of this. I have a budget of that. So here's
actually, wait, Roman.
Yeah.
On this channel, we just put out the under 5,000.
Oh, apparently Matt just told me that we just put out a video of best watches 5,000 and under, so you guys can check that out on this channel after the live. But I do want to address that question because you guys always ask me that type of question, and that's a question that's, again, not answerable. Why is it not answerable? I'll explain. It's a question that we'll always answer with a question. Why? And this is what I've taught all my salespeople to do. Because what I think is the best watch under $5,000 maybe will bias you. If I tell you, oh, get out there and get the Speedy for $5,000, this is the watch for you. Well, I'm also selling this watch, right? My company's selling these watches, right? Does that make me biased? Yes. I also have certain personal tastes, which also make me biased. So rather than answering that question, I always ask about your questions. And the right questions to ask are the following. A, type of lifestyle. Are you looking for something that's a bit more dressy? Are you looking for something that's a bit more sporty? Are you looking for a flex? Are you looking for something that's a bit more quiet? What type of functionality are you looking for in the watch? How important is history or longevity of the companies for you? Are you looking for a watch that's been around for 150 years? Or are you happy, or you want to take a look at some of the newcomers into the market and see if you can pick up something different? These are the type of questions that you can ask yourself and then simply go through and say, okay, if money was no object, let me go on luxurybazaar.com or eBay or Chrono24 and let me just pick a bunch of watches and say, okay, I really like this one, because aesthetics are important. Remember, this is something that on a daily basis, you're going to look down to tell time, and something that becomes a part of you, something that you're going to show to your friends. Once you ask yourself those type of questions, that's when a guy like me or any one of my sales guys can come in and say, well, maybe that's not such a good choice. Or between these 5 choices, these are the top 2. And this is why. And the why is based on what you're looking for in the watch, not what I feel is the correct answer. So I hope that actually helps you guys a little bit, because I get these questions all the time. Did you guys, from Tim K, did you guys still sell that massive box set of erotic watches? No, we did not. We are in talks with 2 retail clients that have interest and a dealer who has a retail client with interest. It's not the easiest sell because of the price ticket of $300,000, but it's also a very specific watch, and some of those are pretty racy. So when I bought this set, I was consciously bought it saying that it's not the easiest thing to sell, but I also like to buy things that nobody else has. And there's no other complete set out there. By the way, that box is 16.5 kilos, so about 35 pounds. It's a heavy box.
Talk about this.
Oh, by the way, did you guys see the new Urwerk Polaris 230 in white? It's the UR 230 Eagle. that is, well, first of all, they have the new fully visible sapphire crystal for the movement. They made 35 pieces. I actually reached out because you guys know I do interact with Martin Frey and Felix Baumgartner, and I called right away and I'm like, hey, are they available? And they sold out instantly, literally instantly. They told me that, like, we announced the watch and all of our clients, and mind you, this is an independent brand. The market is small on them, so their pool of clients is also smaller, but it was big enough for this watch. When I say instantly, they said literally under an hour, all were already spoken for. And honestly, in white, the first thing that caught my eye. Now we know the ingenuity behind Urbic watches and the Horology is next to none. I mean, they're one of my favorite independents, right? I always say MBNF and Urbic, and you tend to look past all of that, and the first thing you see is the aesthetics. Like, it's such a good looking watch. What else did you guys put in my case? Oh, one of the alternatives that a lot of people have been buying to Royal Oaks, to Nautiluses, and things of that nature is Zenith, right? Now, the Defy El Primero, which you're picking up around $10,000. If you want to talk about iconic movements, the El Primero chronograph, obviously the one that you found in Daytona for years until the switch to the in-house movement. The fact that this thing is a skeleton, the finishes, the blued bridges, the comfort level, the size, everything about this watch. Again, another one of, if I could get out there and have my buyers team buy 100 of these and to have these in stock in its variations, especially some of the newer ones that they did in ceramic, I would absolutely do so. Probably one of the top 10 most popular watches that sell for around that $10,000 price range. But a lot of people say, well, Ron, why don't you get out there and buy that many of them? Well, remember, we buy pre-owned product, right? So it's not like I can pick up the phone and say, hey, send me 20 of those, because the price still has to be right for you guys to buy them. Let's look at some questions. Philip DeFore, Roger Smith. If you have to pick one of them only, I'm going with Philip DeFore because he is the godfather of all independent watchmaking, while Roger Smith is his, apprentice, if you will, or student, however you want to call him. And it's like saying, hey, I don't even know what to compare that to. It's like, because Gerald Genta didn't really have an apprentice like that, but Philip DeFore for sure. Now, that doesn't speak to the quality of the watches, one being better than the other. We're strictly talking about the guys, right? We love Nowheresville, Pennsylvania, but any company trips planned for 2025 from Abel Luis? Yes, of course. We're going to be, and announcements are going to go up on all the social media channels. We're going to be at the yearly Miami Antique and Jewelry Watch Show in the Miami Convention Center. That show starts on the 9th and runs through the 13th. So myself, Anna, Alice, and some of the other crew are going to be there. If you're in the area, would love to see you guys there. Vintage Omegas, Vlad the Tickler. It's a great handle. Vlad the Tickler. Vintage Omegas worth buying, or do you need money to maintain them? Well, first of all, you need money to maintain anything. But odds are, if you buy the watch in a perfectly working condition, the odds of you needing to maintain it are slim to none. All these interval services and service this and service this, a bunch of crap, right? I've had watches that I've owned for 10 years and never serviced them, and they still kept on ticking and were accurate, right? It's really about how you wear your watches. And same goes for vintage watches. What do you think? An Omega that was made 60 years ago, that movement is made a lot worse than the movement made today? No, it's very, very small incremental changes that they make in horology, because again, most of this functionality in watches, be it a chronograph or tourbillon, were made 100+ years ago. So it's something that's been done for so long. And because this truly stayed a handmade industry, yes, with the introduction of computers and CNC machines and so on and so forth, perhaps the functionality works better, more accurate, if you will, but quality doesn't go down. So I wouldn't worry about it. If you want a vintage Omega, go ahead and buy it. Just make sure it's in working condition to begin with. H. Banach is asking me, what do you think stopped the Rolex 1908 from taking off? Nothing really stopped it from taking off. Believe it or not, that's a watch that it still trades over list. Like the platinum one, you can't get it. I've had requests for this watch. They're out there on the secondary over retail. They didn't make very many of them. Pull up the platinum one. There it is, that one. Like that watch today, if I go into my dealer chats, it's still trading over its retail price. So whether that's a good measurement, maybe not, because maybe there's just not enough of them out there. And once enough of them are out there, it's going to actually, the market prices are going to go down. When this watch first came out, to me, it was another take on Cellini, which was discontinued, right? And even the Cellini, like the Moonface Cellini, was a very popular selling watch, right? But I do know that the platinum pieces are out there at over list. Now, whether or not this thing took off or not, of the definition of that, time will show. I always say, hey, when something new comes out from Rolex or Patek or some other brands, they come out of the gate, they come out really, really high, and then it all depends on production numbers. It all depends on availability on the market. Right now, availability of the platinum one is slim to none, so it's going to be kind of tough. What is this? Oh, it's a Tudor. So I talked about that price range of $10,000 and under. Tudor is a big part of it, and the only thing I can tell you about Tudor is I don't know if you guys caught the video that I did on was it 5 most improved companies in the last 15 years, right? I actually went back in time when I was selling everything under the sun, and I kind of went through the iteration. Tudor was one of those companies. Tudor is no longer the bastard child of Rolex. It's a company that stands on its own. It's a company where the quality of the watches has gone up tremendously to match the level of Rolex. So it's only a matter of time until we'll forget all about the fact that Tudor is just a bastard child of that cheaper Rolex, and it's just going to be Tudor, and we kind of already there. Do you? Who is it? Adam Strange. This Instagram.
Yeah.
Do you have a GMT black bezel on Oyster Flex? Would love to see it close up on camera.
Do we have one in there?
This one? But yeah, there you go. I do have it. So no, this is a Yachtmaster. Well, it's Yachtmaster. Okay, hold on a second. No, I don't think we have the actual one that you're looking for. But I'm just gonna. They set all this up, so I'm just gonna go through what I have, and we'll go from there. By the way, I still can't get over that Urberg. How good looking is that watch? Yeah,
Oh,
the one that we just showed. That's pretty amazing. What do you think? Ivilo Atanasov is saying, what do you think of FP Journe comparing to the new young guy, Richepi? You have to take things with a grain of salt, right? And oftentimes in a watch market, it's very situational. As a human being, I will take Richepi over Francois Paul Journe. I've met with Richep. I sat down with Richep. We did a video with him if you guys didn't catch it, right? But if you're talking about watchmaking, right, you're talking about you talk about independence in general, and these fall under the category of micro independence, what Richep does. And when I say by micro, I'm talking about really, really small production, right? If FP Journe is already making a lot more watches per year than he used to, right? I think we're up to like 700 or 800 watches a year now. Richep is still under 100 watches per year, right? But the quality you cannot take away. You cannot take away the genius of Francois Paul Journe. You cannot take away some of the watches that he has created, his Resonance, his Sovereign Tourbillon, and all the high horology stuff that he has made. You can't take that away from him. You can't take away the quality. You can't take away the aesthetics. You can't take away that he is the reason why a guy like Richepi is so popular. He's the reason why all these other independent watchmakers are up there and just thriving, if you will, because before, most independent watchmakers were starving artists, right? But then there's also situational things, right? And that is the fact of unobtainium, right? A lot of the times, unobtainium, the fact that you can't get something is what drives up popularity and pricing. This is what happened with Richep, right? Because Richep, at some point, it was the Hourglass, right? That took on, I think, 4 years of his allocation because they realized how talented this guy was and how wonderful his watches were, and all of a sudden you can't get them. Right, that also drives the price. Same as it drives up the price of FP Journe. You can't get FP Journe, therefore the prices are crazy. You have the 1916 company out there that probably has more FP Journes than FP Journe himself, right? Which I'm sure he's not happy about. But it's also situational. But to compare the two is not fair because Francois Paul Journe is one of those OGs that every person out there, including Richepi, looks up to. Actually, last time I saw Richepi was at FP Journe's restaurant during Geneva Watch Days. It's the funniest thing, right? They all respect him. They all respect what he has done. And somebody who's younger, we've yet to see what he's going to do. Now, if you guys saw the watch he did with Louis Vuitton, that is in the echelon of what FP Journe has done in the past. So he's certainly moving in the right direction. But it's not a fair comparison to compare the two. You know, they're all stand in their own leagues. One is a veteran at this point, and the other one is still on his way up. You're going to hear a lot more from Richepi. I think he's going to be here to stay. But to say that he potentially could be the next FP Journe, it's also not a fair comparison. This is not football, right? Watchmakers are not football players. It's a little bit different. What situations? What is this guy talking about?
He's a customer.
I recently bought my first 15500. This is Ray Palmer. 15500 STAP from Luxury Bazaar. I brought my watch by a pre-owned watch dealer to show him what he thinks about my recent purchase, and his response was something is off. Do you run across situations like this? Plus, by the way, I love my watch and the customer service. Also, how do I register my new watch for the warranty? Well, the registration process for AP is very simple. You simply scan your card, warranty card that has a QR code, and you can register it. Have I run into situations where I myself have looked at a watch that another dealer would call me and say, I think something may be off? Absolutely. Sometimes the question of, hey, is my watch legit? When I'm asked that question by people, if you guys have asked me that on Instagram, I tell people I don't answer those questions unless I have the watch in hand. And oftentimes, if you're not 100% or 1,000,000% correct, and somebody shows you a watch and something seems funny to you, perhaps it might be fake, right? It's a lot easier to say, I'm not 100% sure. I will never say something is off. I will always say, because when you say something is off, now you're kind of making a derogatory statement towards the dealer that may have sold that watch, right? I would always say, listen, I am not 100. I will say, I'd rather not say, right? Or because given the commitment of saying, hey, this watch is 100% legit, and if you think for a second there's a chance that something might be wrong, especially in the vintage world, I rather just not comment on something like that. But some dealers choose to do what they want to do. Did you recently find a magic key to an AP stockroom? Lots of great additions added to your options added to your website. What we actually ended up doing is you guys know we also have an office in Hong Kong, and oftentimes the stock that's been there is not stock that we have here because of logistical situations. Let's say you buy a watch that's sitting in my Hong Kong office that can take up to a week to get here. And people tend to get a little anxious when they send me $100,000 and I tell them, well, it's going to deliver in 5 days. So yeah, we put on some of the inventory that we had in our Hong Kong office. We added it to our website. And AP is my favorite brand. AP has been our #1 seller for years upon years upon years. So you shouldn't be surprised. I have Ivala, one last question if you have time. I think one of the best watches recently created is a Jaeger Master Hybris Artistica. I talked about this watch on one of the Watch News Weekly. That's a watch that knocked my socks off, right? Ever since Eric Coudray created the Gyro Tourbillon for Jaeger-LeCoultre 20 some years ago, I think it was at this point, right? It was sort of that race between Eric Coudray and Frank Mueller, who actually made the first 3D tourbillon. Credit goes to Frank Mueller because it came to market first. Eric Coudray then did the Gyro tourbillon for Jaeger-LeCoultre. This is Jaeger-LeCoultre showing people how big their dick is, right? Minute repeater, 3D tourbillon. I mean, this watch is packed with complications. Jaeger-LeCoultre does this every year or every couple of years or so to show the world that, A, we are indeed the watchmakers. Look what we can do that you cannot do, because there's not a whole lot of companies that can actually make that without reaching out to other factories to do so, right? So you have a lot of complicated pieces out there, but a lot of those complications are made by other factories. It's sort of similar to the Grand Complication, which holds a record that Vacheron made, the big pocket watch, right, that had the Chinese zodiac calendar. For those of you guys understand the zodiac calendar, it's not exactly like our calendar. And every so many years, there's 355 days and 365 days in a year. And then every few years, there's 385 days in a year. It is probably one of the most complex complications. You like that one? Pull up that Vacheron Grand Comp, if you can put that up on a screen. It's one of the most complicated complications that you can make. And again, the last record was also held by Vacheron Constantin. This is a way of these companies to reminding people that, even though those that are not maybe playing in that price range, to remind them that, hey, this is how badass we really are, right? And this is exactly what Jaeger did as well. What is that?
Keep the smallest picture.
No, that's not the one I want. Pull up Vacheron Pocket Watch. It was in one of the. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, the Chinese put in Vacheron Pocket Watch Zodiac calendar. Grand Complication. There it is, the big pocket watch. Yeah, I can't really see that well, but no, that's not the one. But whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, to go back to what you were asking, about the Jaeger. Yes, I am thoroughly impressed by that watch. I think it's an amazing watch, and I think again, every so often, Audemars Piguet did it with the Code 1159 Grand Complication that they made. Right, these big boy companies. This is not something that 95% of all companies out there can actually do. And this is just a reminder of just how good these guys are and how high they can go in high horology. It doesn't get any higher, if you will.
I think this is a good question.
Which one?
Seconds 84.
So Seconds 84 says, a few nice watches or one great gold watch? Again, a question that's tough to answer. For me personally, and this is not what I'm saying you should do, I'd rather have a variety of watches, right, than one gold watch. Plus, one gold watch is not very versatile, right? Like sometimes you need a steel watch or a beater watch or something for sports activity or diving and so on and so forth. So I would always go with a few watches over one big gold watch. Which one is this? Oh, these things have been selling like hotcakes, right? The Santos Dumont, again, it's under $5,000. A throwback to the original Santos that was made over 100 years ago now. First men's wristwatch. Cartier has really been on an up and up, which is why I explained that last year they actually beat out Omega for second place. It was Rolex, Cartier, then Omega. I don't know what the numbers are for 2024, but I'm sure we'll get those numbers and we'll go over them. But how about something a little bit more expensive? Because now it seems like we switched from $100,000 watches to $5,000 watches, but we did not. Panerai La Sanziato Radiomir Tourbillon. Okay, so the first La Sanziato that they made was in the Marina case, and that was actually the latest tourbillon watch ever made, all in to include the buckle. It was made out of titanium, and the cool part about these watches is that this is actually 3D printed. So what you see here in the dial, the bridges, it's actually printed layer by layer. Each layer is thinner than a hair, and eventually it builds up and creates what you see inside this particular watch. Now, one thing I love about this watch is obviously the two-axis tourbillon that you see here. Should probably wind these things before we show them so you can see the tourbillon work, of course. And by the way, them being wrapped up, showing them on camera doesn't do it justice. Let me wind this thing. Now you can see the tourbillon making its revolution on the second axis. So it's this way and this way. Now, unfortunately for Panerai, their higher end, or I should say more expensive stuff, their more expensive stuff is something that hasn't really held value very well, because your average Panaristi, this is what we used to refer to Panerai collectors back in the day when every Panerai watch was selling over retail, in its beginning stages. Your average Panaristi was looking to spend under $10,000. And the minute you start getting into high complications, you sort of lose the crowd, if you will. Now, this is an absolutely amazing timepiece. The GMT, the tourbillon, everything about it, the 3D printing, the tech is certainly there. The problem is that when you start putting a price tag on a watch that's nearing $200,000 in a brand that usually is synonymous with watches around the $10,000 price range, this is when you start running into issue. This is their way to test that market. But believe it or not, there's still a market out there for it. They don't make very many of these, and there's a reason for that. On a secondary, you're picking them up under 100 grand. What are we selling it for? 80 grand, right? But at the same token, I've always said the same thing. There's an ass for every seat. One of the most popular troll comments that I've seen on YouTube in the previous lives or whatever I get on Instagram is that, hey, what happened to Anthony's diamond Gerard Perregaux? Well, we sold that as well. Like I said, there's an ask for every seat. And for us, the trick is diversity, right? And because we want to find, that's not even going to come off right. We want to find every S that's out there looking for a seat. That's just wrong. But you understand what I'm getting.
I don't think that's how you should word it.
I don't think that's how I should have worded it, but you guys get the point, because the only way you're going to get a diversity of client is by having a diversity product. Listen, we can sit there and sell Rolex all day, every day, but that's not going to move the needle. Plus, as a company, it's not going to diversify our client base. So we have to reach towards, different things, if you will.
Someone's surprised.
Yes, Abel Luis Czar Jr. Apparently, he knows about the Anthony watch. It did sell. What is this about? Interview with? Well, Jonathan Wise, real quick, is there a specific Royal Oak reference? you would recommend under 40K. I've always wanted one. I mean, you can pick up the current chronographs and automatics around that price range. So just pick the dial you like, the color you like, and go with that one. Garth Payment says, Roman, Garth here from the Netherlands. I have seen the interview from Hodinkee with the CEO of AP. Where do you self see the brand sales in the future, and do you see more women customers shopping at LB? Okay, you're referring, well, the new CEO of Automark PA is a female. Is that going to necessarily drive more female traffic or less female traffic? I don't think that's going to make a difference whether she's a guy or girl. I will tell you this, the new CEO has pretty big shoes to fill, because what Francois has done for the brand in his tenure as the global CEO and even the CEO of Americas was tremendous. He turned his brand around like I've never seen, right? And truly made it as, you know, the Holy Trinity brand, if you will, Attic, APVC, right? As far as more women customer shopping at LB, let me tell you guys something. The watch industry, the watch world, be it on social media, be it on the purchase side, it's a sausage party. It's majority males. Like if you look at my Instagram account statistics, I think I'm at like 90. What's out on Instagram? I think it's like 94% male, 6% female. I don't know what it is on YouTube. Probably something similar, right? There's just some things that guys are more into than girls, right? And while I do have a lot of female clientele, part of the reason that is because we also sell jewelry. So maybe my numbers might be a little bit skewed, but for the most part, I don't know. Do I think that a female CEO can move the needle on new female collectors? Yes, but the problem is if you look at Hodinke's numbers, they're probably very similar to ours, where it's mostly guys watching that stuff. And to be fair, I don't think males or females, watch collectors alike care if you're a female CEO or a male CEO. I just don't know if that's something that's going to move the needle. To own, would you take a multi-million-dollar watch or a hypercar? From Brett Ogden, I would take a multi-million-dollar watch. You can't take your car into a club, as they say, but that's not the reason. I'm not much into cars, if you will. I do like nice cars. I can appreciate hypercars, but one thing about hypercars is that's not an everyday drive. Most of them just end up sitting in your garage looking good, and you drive them 1,000 miles a year. So it's not my thing. I actually like to drive. That's why for the last, say, 15 years, I've had a Mercedes S-Class, which I change for a new one every 3 years. I don't even buy my car, I lease my cars. It's one of the most comfortable cars, gets a point across in terms of flex. It's super reliable. Trust me when I tell you, I've driven hypercars. They're not the most comfortable cars to drive on a daily. Plus, I live in the suburbs of Philadelphia. We're going to do it with a Ferrari. Luigi, do you think Vacheron Constantin is underrated right now? The prices have dropped big time. How about I think that Vacheron Constantin has always been underrated? And the fact that it's owned by a group and doesn't stand on its own and is part of the Holy Trinity, that actually breaks my heart. Now, Vacheron prices has always been under retail, to include the overseas. The overseas hype came up as the Royal Oak hype and the Nautilus hype came up, right? It was another automatic stainless steel sports watch from a major brand, longest running brand for that matter, right? Consistently running brand, I should say. Part of the Holy Trinity. So why not? If the Royal Oak started going through the roof and then you had the Nautilus is going through the roof at the same time, why not Vacheron? 100%. But it comes down to availability, right? When you're dealing with a company that's under a big group, they spit out numbers. They spit out quantity of watches. They're looking to do numbers. They're looking to make money. This is a business. And it's a very thin line between something being unavailable and then all of a sudden readily available. And the more something is readily available, the less the price is going to be. And here's the situations. One of the biggest culprits of the correction taking place a couple of years ago, post the COVID hype, was when you have more people purchasing something for the purpose, flipping it and making a profit rather than putting it on the risk. This is what happens. That's what happened with Vacheron. It didn't happen with AP to an extent because AP is still trading over list because it's still not as readily available, i.e. there's more demand out there for them than there is supply still. There's still a waiting list. Same goes for, well, happen to have a Rolex Daytona here. What are we selling the white Daytona for now? Well, let's see. So this one is 29.5, right? The 116500 LN white dial. Panda is more popular. It's online for 29.5, which is damn near double its retail price because again, there's more demand for that. So notice, yeah, the prices did drop. That thing was like $55,000 in the high of the COVID market, but it didn't drop down to below retail. It dropped down to damn near double retail, right? It's just 55,000, which is just a little crazy. 5740s are trading now closer to retail plus tax, John Smith says. What do you think white gold is a daily? I actually like the white gold as a daily. Why? Because, Nautilus is a stainless steel. They tend to be light, and I like a little bit of heft on my wrist, right? The market, we just sold a 5740 for 214,000, I want to say. I do like the white gold for a daily. And people are going to say, well, stainless steel is a little bit more durable than white gold and so on and so forth. I tell people the same thing. Wear your watch, scratch your watch, ding your watch, it doesn't matter. It's a quick professional polish away from being brand new. What do you got there for me, Matt? Okay. Which company, and this is on Instagram, IP Man Collects, I guess it says, which company has the biggest potential to join the Holy Trinity to make I cannot see that.
I don't even know if that works.
To make a quaternary, and what would that company need to do to elevate themselves to that level? The Holy Trinity is just that. It's three companies, right? Trinity, Paddock, APDC, PP, APDC, to make it sound funnier. So I don't foresee in the near future any of those companies leaving the Holy Trinity, which is why you refer to quaternary. I guess that's the equivalent of Trinity. Think about this one. What would be, what would make it a quartet, I guess? I would love to see JJ Lecout join that party. I would love to see IWC join that party. I would love to see Elise Nardon join that party. I think what it takes is innovation. It takes high horology. It takes history, longevity in the business, continuous longevity in the business, not a brand that was around in 1755 and then opened back up 10 years ago, right? I also would love to see a new Trinity formed, like sort of the Holy Trinity of Independence. I'd love to see that be out there. But if I had to add a fourth to the Trinity, making it I can't even pronounce that word, quaternary or Trinity, whatever. It would have to be JJ Lecout, IWC, Elise Nardon. Those are probably the brands I would love to see take the Trinity to a quartet. What else we got here? Oh, by the way, I always bring, we always get these in. Like, and what the guys line up is usually like new arrivals that recently came in, right? The root beer. And I always like talking about the root beer, which again is another watch that, is still trading pretty strong at just under $20,000. Is what this watch did to the two-tone market. Two-tone watches have historically been dogs, what we like to call dogs. And a lot of retail clients refer to watches that are unsellable or don't have great resale value as dogs, right? It's a common terminology that we use. What the two-tone root beer did for the two-tone market is, I think it was a savior. I have never seen two-tone watches more popular than they are today. In fact, they're the most popular they have ever been, even post the correction, post everything else. Because 10, 15 years ago, I couldn't give away a two-tone watch. They were just not popular. It didn't matter if it was a Daytona. It didn't matter if it was a Submariner. It didn't matter what it was. It's just something that, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't, they never sold well. And this watch like saved the world. CQ, the watch guy. What's up, CQ? Good to see you on here. CQ, the watch guy, says, would be dope if the Trinity was revised annually by a board of brands. CQ, I think it'd be dope if that was revised by a board of guys like us. What do you think? I think that would be really, really cool. Christian Vanderklaw, a Dutch high horology astronomical watch brand. What do you think about that type of watches? While I can appreciate the watches and while I can appreciate the technology or the horology, I should say, what I also need to learn to appreciate is the business side of things, right? Because I'm in a business of not just appreciating watches or talking about watches or admiring watches. Yes, there's no secret I'm a watch lover, horology lover, and all those things. I wouldn't be in this business. I love what I do. But at the end of the day, I also look from a business perspective. And Christian Vanderclaw, I've had a few long time ago. They just don't sell, unfortunately, right? So I also have to go with what the general public thinks. While I may like the watch, I also have to look at it as an asset or a commodity that I also have to in turn sell. And also a commodity that when I do sell it and my client comes back to me, if I sell it to him for $5 and he comes back, I want to give him 50 cents. That's also a big issue for me. BS, it's a hell of a handle. While really loving UN, huh? I think it's the first time I've heard anyone possibly adding UN to the Trinity. Well, again, it's one of those things that a little bit of nostalgia, right? I sold a ton of UN pre-carrying group when Ralph Schneider was still alive. I've met Ralph Schneider when he was alive in, well, back then it was Basel World in Basel, Switzerland, right? I have sold some of his highest complications like the Genghis Khans and the Circus Minute repeaters and things of that nature. I closely followed The Freak and by Ashlung, right? So it's one of those things that's near and dear to my heart. And the reason I started talking about it as of recent is because I had the pleasure of meeting the new people behind the brand. It's now back to being privately owned. I see what they're doing. I see what they're trying. They're trying to revive a historical and iconic brand. I like the fact that they're going in the right direction. I like some of the stuff that they're putting out, some of the newer stuff. I mean, the last Freak Nomad S, I mean, it literally took 20 years of innovation within the Freak line and put it all together. It's just like, you really have to get super geeky on the horological side and super nostalgic on the fact that this used to be like one of my favorite brands and highest seller, right? So thank you, CQ. He says, UN criminally underrated, especially older gen, early 2000 Patrick Hoffman era, 100% you are right. And he also says, I agree, it would be fun to vote on the Trinity's GPHG done by those in the market. Yeah, CQ, 100% it should be guys like us to rate that, right? Like you literally get 100 guys that have been doing the watch thing for a while. They've been on the internet for a while on YouTube. By the way, I love watching CQ on YouTube, guys. If you don't follow them, certainly give them a follow. And it's one of those things that, yeah, I think it's people like us that should have that vote, along with clients, right? Actual customers, actual wearers of these watches. Like CQ, maybe we should make like a website, like a voting website, right? And like make it to where like you have to own certain things, like know that, hey, I own this, this, then the other, and my vote is this, right? So that we know it's just like random people voting. I don't know what it is. Let's talk offline, see what we can do. A couple of more watches. Resins, right? Resins has been those watches that we've been steadily picking up as well. But again, they make so very few that they come in and they sort of go out. For those of you that are not familiar, resins is that watch that where the entire watch is a big oil bubble, if you will, right? There's literally oil throughout this entire watch. You don't see it. If you do see a bubble in the oil, that's when you know how you have a problem. That watch needs to be fixed, actually. But again, resins. What is this one going for? This one is 13,450. I like this. When they first came out, honestly, I didn't think they were going to stick around because of the way those watch works and the fact that it's so different. But to my surprise, they actually did stick around and they still sell and they still sell well. What else we have here? I mean, when it comes to new arrivals, it's Rolex, 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 Rolex. There's no surprise. There's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 18 watches in this case, out of which you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 30% of this stuff is Rolex, and actually goes pretty well with our percentages because I think 31% of our business this year was indeed Rolex. Which, by the way, I started this live for those of you guys that weren't here in the beginning with, setting certain goals and the goals that we've met. And I am actually proud to say that, our goal this year was to hit the $100 million mark. The highest we did was 137 million during the COVID hype. Next year, that went down to 111, and which is the prior year. And this year, I was happy to hit $100 million because consider the pricing, right? If I looked at my $130 million year in volume, and I looked at my $100 million year now, which is 2 years apart, the prices were apart by on average that 20%, right? So if we were selling a Daytona in the hype for $50,000, and today we're selling it for $30,000, you can sort of see the difference. Now, it didn't happen across all watches, but most popular watches kind of went down in value, which means we're still selling the same volume. It's just the prices have come down, and now it's time to pick sales back up. I'm hoping that next year will be better. 2024 is probably I would say one of the worst years in a while. I mean, since I would say the '08 crisis, the housing crisis. But back then, the company wasn't as big, so we didn't feel it as much. The biggest issue that we ran into these last couple of years was a lot of trades, right? Pretty much 80 to 85% of all transactions were trades. What that does in turn is gives you great numbers on the books, but it can make you cash poor really quick. So money management was extremely important this year for us. It always has been, but a lot more important this year, right? Because you want to make sure you don't run out of money because, yeah, I can put $200 million of sales on the books, but then if all of it was trades, I will run out of money, right? But overall, I'm happy with the way this year has ended. And I want to thank all of you guys that are watching, all you guys that have bought from us over the past. And it's been a difficult year. My expectations for 2024, because that's what people are asking me. Hey, is the market picking back up? It depends on how you define market. Remember, what happened during COVID was completely. I remember economics 101. My professor's name was Dr. Giapong, and I remember him really well because I really liked him. This was one of the prerequisites you had to take when you first started college. This was in Penn State, and he talked. The very first thing they teach you in economics is regular economies versus irregular economies, right? And what happened during COVID was one of those irregular economies or irregular markets. Back in a regular market, the markets stay pretty stable, and watches tend to go down in value as they get a bit older or less popular. New stuff tends to go up in value as popularity goes up, but it always stays within that 10 to 20% price range, if you will, right? So when you're back, I prefer to do business in a regular market, which is where we are at now. There's still going to be some watches that are going to go down. There's going to be some watches that are going to go back up. There's going to be situational things that will cause markets to move, as it is in any market, right? Certain auction results, all of a sudden, something becomes more popular. And availability of certain pieces in the market will drive the prices up, but it's not going to drive them double, triple, or quadruple like we saw consistently during the COVID times. It's sort of a temporary drive up. But one thing that is good to know, right? And I always said watches are not an investment, they're an expensive toy. It's good to see that even post the price dip, a lot of the price level stabilized at a higher price level than there were a couple of years prior to that, right? Which means that in general, overall, the watch market is going up. And I'm not talking about pricing, because what's important to me is not the pricing. What's important to me is the popularity. What's important to me is new eyes in the watch market. What's important to me is new collectors. What's important to me is people that have never thought about spending $5,000 on a watch, even though they can afford it 10 times over, are now looking that way. They're looking at high horology. They're looking at the independence. They're looking at history. They're looking at this love of horology that we call watch collecting, and they're jumping in. My definition of success in a watch market is the watch market becoming bigger overall. It's not about a watch going up in value. It's about the market. It's about the number of collectors out there. It's about the people that are continuing to collect, that have been collecting for years, right? That's what keeps the lights on in my office. It's not the fact that a particular watch can go from $5,000 to $10,000 in value. It's the fact that the world in its entirety of horology is getting wider and bigger. And it's thanks to guys like you and girls that are watching. It's thanks to social media, the fact that we can bring a bigger, broader light onto this thing we call watches or horology that we absolutely love. Not to get sentimental on you here or really, really cheesy. Don't start crying on me now. But that's what this is all about, because 20-some years ago, 22 years ago now, when I started, I didn't have Facebook. I didn't have anything. What I had going for me is the World Wide Web. The first time where me and really a handful of other guys that jumped on there and started selling watches on eBay, all of a sudden that broadened the world. But with social media, to me, that's on steroids right now. You know, you go, and luxury is what I think the third most trending topic on any social media platform. Right? I think it's skin, memes, and then luxury, right? Whether it's cars, watches, or whatever, but that's a good sign. It's a good sign. I like to use the Omega Swatch watch as a good example, because when it first came out, half the people loved it, half the people dogged on it. I think more people dogged on it, Matt, if I remember. But if you think about it, I said the same thing. What that watch did is it allowed somebody to enter the world of watch collecting, at least feel like they entered a higher end of watch collecting through a big brand like Omega without it breaking the bank. And I think that's what really lived really well with me. I live in Southampton, looking to come in for my first purchase. come on in. We're open from 9 to 6, Monday through Friday. How long has it been? Been an hour? Oh, it's been an hour and 5 minutes. Well, guys, I wanted to thank everybody. Let me take a couple more questions, and I'll jump out of here. I didn't really even show all the watches. So a bunch of more Rolexes. Kudoku watch. I think I talked about this one on my Instagram. If you guys are not familiar, it's a pretty cool watch. First time I actually had one of these. Oh, and another Nardine Executive Tourbillon. Okay, that's it for the watches. What are your thoughts on Richard Mille? Talk about loaded question, right? I love Richard Mille. Okay, I'm just gonna make it. I'm just gonna make it quick and easy and tell you that I love the brand. And for those of you that talk about the fact that it's a flex watch, a watch for millionaires, and so on and so forth, go back in history a little bit. Richard Mille went through a lot of struggles in the very beginning. How about I've had Richard Mille closeouts? For those of you that are not familiar with closeouts are, that's when you buy stuff on both pennies on a dollar, right? And they've gone a long way since that. But it's look at the horology from the very beginning. Look at the stuff that they were renowned Papi in the beginning. Look at the fact that look at the material use, right? Crystal tourbillons. Look at NTPT or TPT materials. Look at them being pioneers in other things out there. Look at some of the stuff they've done with their chronographs, right? And look at the fact that they're able to price a chronograph watch, an RM 1103, rose gold and titanium at around $300,000. And yet those things are still selling over list. And it is indeed the #1 flex watch in the world. Because if you're going to start looking at watch as a flex as a negative thing, you're wrong. Because what are these expensive toys? 90% of buyers today that buy watches, they buy it. I would even go as far as say 100%. Even those that collect quiet watches, some of these dinky little Cartier, vintage Cartiers that 1 in 1,000 watch collectors will even understand what that watch is and why it's so rare, right? Well, most will think it's just a $2,000, $3,000 tank, right? Even that's a flex, right? Because at the end of the day, we buy expensive and luxury things for ourselves, I hope, first and foremost. But the flex factor, it's always going to be there. It's going to be in you buying the latest and greatest pair of sneakers, the latest and greatest watch, a hypercar like we talked about earlier, anything for that matter. So the fact that you can be the leader in that category, which is the #1 reason people buy expensive things to begin with, I think makes you a pretty badass brand. Oh my God, don't start this conversation. What are your thoughts on Lawson over Yuki for Max teammates? I think Yuki got screwed big time. Now, I don't know. We'll know what the underlying thing was when the new season of Drive to Survive comes out, obviously, if they talk about that. But I look at numbers, right? So Yuki's been with the team, 5 years now? They got to race together for a little bit, and in every single race, Yuki beat him out. Yuki was 6-0 against Lawson. But maybe we know something that we don't know. Maybe in testing, Lawson showed much better in a faster car. Maybe, I don't know. Do I think Yuki got screwed? Yes. Do I feel bad for Yuki? Yes. If I had to choose, would I choose Yuki? Yes. Sorry, I don't need to bore you guys that are not into Formula One, but yeah, Yuki got screwed on that one. I'm going to stop it here. It's been a little bit over an hour. I try to keep this an hour and under, but I want to appreciate everybody that logged in. I'm gonna do these every week. Now, of course, we're going to have a break over the holiday season. So I think, when is the next time we're going to go live? Next week we got Christmas. It's going to be after the New Year, and actually, it's going to be after I come back from the Miami Beach show. So it's going to be sometime in the middle of January. But I will continue doing these on a weekly basis so long as I'm in the office. For those of you going to be in the Miami area or want to travel to Miami in January, trust me, it's a great place to be in January. A lot better than back here on the East Coast or up north, I should say. It's going to be a lot warmer and nicer. So for those of you that can make it there, we'll make some announcements, and we're also going to link some free tickets and stuff like that. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.